Hello, I'm about to record the Navi Shir for tomorrow, Wednesday. And we've been learning in Navi, we've been learning Shir Hashirin. We're up to Perik Dalid. It's a large Perik, it's a magnificent Perik, and I need tefillah. I only hope I should be able to do it some justice. Again, as usual, I will read the pasuk. I will explain what Rashi says, and then I'll try to explain it. The pasuk says, "Hinach yafa rayasi." Hashem says, "You are beautiful, my beloved. Hinach yafa, you are beautiful. Einayich yoinim, your eyes are like doves. Mibad letzamasech, what comes out from behind the kerchief around your head. Sarech ka'eder ho'izim, your hair is like a flock of goats. Shegolshu mihar gilad, that skated down, that swept down from Har Gilad." Incomprehensible pasuk. I'll just read and translate it one more time. Hinech yafa rayasi, you are beautiful, my beloved. Hinech yafa, you are beautiful. Einayich yoinim, your eyes are like doves. Mibad letzamasech, from inside your kerchief, sarech, your hair is ke'eder izim, like a flock of goats. Shegolshu, that descended mihar Gilad. Rashi says, Yafa rayasi, you are beautiful, my beloved. Hashem says you are beautiful in the korbanos that you bring, like in these parashiyos of Vayikra and Tzav. Einayich yoinim, your eyes are like doves. Rashi says a dove is very loyal to its mate, and by the way, that's why the Ramban says that you bring yoinim, doves, you bring for a korban because it's a symbol of loyalty. But even when the yonah is about to be slaughtered, it reaches out with its neck to be slaughtered. That's a symbol, meaning to say we are prepared to serve Hashem and to be dedicated to Hashem and His mitzvahs, even at the cost of our lives. The expression of within your kerchief, your hair is like a flock of goats. The hair, I've explained before, is a symbol of people that are not very learned or not very scholarly or even not very religious. Because the body of a person has many parts. It has a heart, it has eyes, it has a liver, it has lungs, it has all kinds of important organs. Hair is just attached to the body. In the same way, amongst the Jewish people, there are some that are attached to the core of the Jewish nation, but they're like hair, they're attached to it, they get their nourishment from it, but they're not key organs. And these are the ones that are ke'eder ha'izim, like a flock of goats. Again, to explain, I'll explain later, it's like Yaakov and his sons who came down from mountains of Gilad when Lavan was chasing them. Another explanation is like those who came down the mountains of Gilad when they fought against the war, when they fought the war against Midian. Okay. Again, I understand this is very difficult to understand. So, let's start. In the last parak, we learned that God has accelerating appreciation for the Jewish people. It started when He took them out of Mitzrayim, and He said, "Nar Yisrael va'ohaveyu." Yisrael is like my child, and I love them. But the way you love a child, not because the child has any great accomplishments, but you love the child, it's your child. Later, when you start accomplishing as an adolescent or teenager or young adult, you start becoming considered a chaysi, a sister, a sibling, more qualities. The love comes from a love of appreciation, of a development of intellect. And eventually, we had in the last parak that God called us Aim. Aim, we called us a mother, like a mother who has much intelligence, who helps lead the family, and the Jewish people were considered like a mother when they ultimately showed great maturity in their understanding of the Torah and understanding of Hashem. So, when the pasuk says Hinech yafa rayasi, God says you are beautiful. God's ideas of beauty are different than secular ideas of beauty. It is God's ideas of beauty that would consider an esrog that was handled by hundreds of hands that turned brown from use, would consider it beautiful, because it sees all the affection that people who use this esrog had. The Gemara in Psochim, right? We're coming up to Pesach. In Gemara in Psochim, the Chassam Sofer said that the Bnei Aaron who were walking ankle deep in blood erev Pesach from Korbanos, and the Gemara considers that an article of beauty. It's very different than a secular view. The secular view would see people in noble clothing walking around in the blood of slaughtered animals. That would be considered disgusting. But we consider the blood of those korbanos. What was it that those korbanos symbolized? What did the Jew have in mind when he brought a korban Hashem? How he dedicated his life to God. How he dedicated this korban in appreciation of Yetzias Mitzrayim. So many Jews came here and attached their souls to God, and walking around in the blood of those korbanos was symbolic of all that dedication. It wasn't just a yach of blood. We saw beyond the yach. We saw what was within it. That's why Rashi says, Hinech yafa reyasi hinech yafa. And what did Rashi say? You are beautiful in your korbanos. Even in einayich yoinim, your eyes are like doves. The Ramban says that when a person brought a korban, it means he was virtually willing to sacrifice his life, but God doesn't want his life. So einayich, your eyes, your leadership are like yoinim. When they bring their korbanos, it's as if they would be like yoinim, willing to give up their lives for the sacrifice of God. Miba'ad l'tzamosech. What comes out from within the kerchief, your hair is like a flock of goats. The hair, Balatanya writes that sometimes even the weakest of the Jewish people, the least of them, would be willing to give up their lives al Kedushas Hashem. Many of them were willing to suffer, not deny God. Even those who really didn't understand the greatness of God or really didn't understand their attachment to Judaism still were willing to go al Kiddush Hashem. So therefore, sa'arayich, even your hair that comes out of the kerchief, even the ones that don't have great qualities and they're not integral parts of the Jewish body, even they are ke'eder ho'izim, like a flock of goats. Who's that flock of goats? Yaakov and his sons. Yaakov and his sons came down from Har Gilad when Lavan was chasing them, and the reason why Yaakov left Lavan's house is because Nichsav Nichsavta, because Yaakov longed to go back to Israel. Yaakov longed to get away from the house of Lavan. And even the simple Jews also longed to get away from secular influences. They longed to get away from philosophies that are foreign to us. Even the hair that comes out of the kerchief is as dedicated as the Yaakov and his sons that came down from Har Gilad. But even more than that, Rashi says, like the soldiers who came down Har Gilad when they fought against Midian, and that we'll talk about in the next pasuk. So reviewing again the pasuk, Hinech yafa reyasi, God says, you're beautiful, my beloved. Hinech yafa, you are truly beautiful. Your beauty is my kind of beauty. Your beauty is your dedication to me. Your beauty is even a well-worn esrog, and your beauty is the korbanos that you bring. Einayich yoinim, the yoina is one that gives up its life and to be loyal to its mate. And your eyes and your leadership and your people are also willing to give up their lives for God. But thank God, God doesn't want your lives. You bring korbanos instead. The hair that comes out from your kerchief, even the Jews that are not that rich with service of God, even those that are not so knowledgeable about the Torah of God, nevertheless they're equal to the Eider Hu'izim, like the flock, Shagolju Mihar Gilad, that came down from Har Gilad. The comparison to goats is because there is a midrash that the goats symbolized the getting away from Avodah Zarah. In Lavan's house there was much Avodah Zarah, and the midrash says when the Nesiim wrote korbanos, when the Mishkan was dedicated, Asir Izim Echad Lechatos, the goat Lechatos, was symbolic of our abhorrence and our separation from Avodah Zarah. So we were like an Eider Izim, like a flock of goats that want to separate ourselves from the Avodah Zarah of Lavan. Pasuk Beis, Shinayich ke'eder aktsuvos she'alu ben arachza. Your teeth are like a flock that are well carved that came out of the wash. Shekulam mat'imais, all your teeth are perfect. V'shakula ein bahem, there's nothing missing in them. One more time. Your teeth are like a flock that is well carved that came out from the wash. All of them are perfect, and there's no failure in them, there's nothing missing. Rashi says that the heroes of Israel, their soldiers, that may be able to tear apart their enemies in battle, but nevertheless they distance themselves from theft, and they distance themselves from sexually prohibited sins. The 12,000 soldiers who went to war against Midian, and when they came back after a great victory, it says that V'lo nifkad mimenu ish, not one of them sinned, not one of them did anything wrong when in the conquest. Neither did they steal, because whatever it was they captured, they brought it before Moshe. And even if, God forbid, even if any of them had a thought of doing a sin, it says that they brought to Moshe Rabbeinu a special offering of gold, saying, bring this as an offering to God. We're not sure, we don't think so, but ulai, maybe somebody had a thought of sin. So, let me explain. Again, talking the difference between our soldiers, the Jewish soldiers, and the soldiers of others. I'm reading a little bit from Moshe's words, they're so poetic. The nations of the world in their generations always arranged mighty wars that reddened all the pages of history. At the time of battle, they demonstrated their power, their strength, and the glory of their armies in all its colors. Steel chariots and steel fire, glorious armor and shining uniforms, tremendous order and great battle strategies and marches, stormy marches of victory. But how did those soldiers behave during the war and after it? How did those drunk with victory look when they swept upon the loot and when they fell upon what they stole? How they trampled human dignity and killed mother and children. Shame on you, swordsmen, shame on you. You're strong in battle, but you're so weak in your desires. You're consumed by your lowly desires. Where is your beauty? Where is your glory? Where is your discipline? In a moment you turned into wild beasts, tearing in every place, and you're so soiled with innocent blood. On the other hand, take a look at the army of Hashem. They never got drunk with the blood of the enemy, and they never sinned. 12,000 men, all perfect, all innocent, with clean hands, nobody missing, as pure when they came back from war as they went out to war, as if they just came out of the wash and not from the killing fields. Your teeth are like a flock well carved. Yeah, the teeth are a symbol of ripping and tearing apart. So now we'll do the pasuk again. Your soldiers of Midian, your teeth were like a flock, but teeth very well formed, very straight, that came out of the wash. Not out from the battlefield, but out from the wash. All your teeth were perfect and nothing missing. It is those teeth, many of them belonged to the hair that we talked about in the previous pasuk. God says you are beautiful, even the hair that comes out of the kerchief, even the soldiers that are not observant, even the soldiers that are not learned, even the ones that are not Shomer Torah mitzvahs, but nevertheless, they're still so good, they're so disciplined. In fact, in the Israeli army, there is a law called Tohar HaNeshek. Before you're given your weapon, you're ordered to make sure that the weapon is always used cleanly, always used only correctly, only right, and never, God forbid, abused. Next pasuk, pasuk Gimel, Kechut Hashani Sifsayich, your lips are like a line of red, Umidbarech Nove, and your words are beautiful. Kefela Charima in Rakosech, Mibadlet Samosech, like a slice of a pomegranate is your forehead, what comes out from under the kerchief. Again, I'll read it again in English. Like a line of red are your lips, and your words are beautiful. Like a slice of a pomegranate is your forehead, what comes out from the kerchief. Rashi starts to explain. Your lips are like a red line. They're beautiful because they promised and they kept their promise, the way the spies promised Rachav Hazana. They told her that a red string that you used to help us escape will be the string you will hang outside your wall when we come into Israel, and your house will be protected and you and your family will be safe. And our words, Umidbarech Nava, the words were beautiful. Rakosech, one more time, is the forehead, And Rakosech also stands for rake. Rake. What comes out from the kerchief, Rakosech, okay, forehead, but rake means empty, meaning even the empty ones of the Jewish people are kefela chariman, like a pomegranate. Like a pomegranate has so many seeds. Even the empty Jews that think they're not knowledgeable, that think that they really don't observe, but still they're so full of mitzvahs. I cannot I cannot stop but tell you just an example of kefela chariman rakosech. Um, I was in Israel a couple of years ago, and I was staying in someone's house in Efrat, and the family was not going to be there for Shabbat, and I was going to be there for Shabbat by myself. I had been Friday afternoon at a concert in Jerusalem, and after the concert, I was hurrying back to Efrat, and on my way back, I realized that I need to light candles for Shabbat, and I didn't feel like rummaging in the house I was in to look for their candles. So as I was driving down Derech Chevron, I saw a supermarket that was open. So I stopped the car and I went into the supermarket, and behind the counter stood a man that had so many body piercings from up to bottom and so many tattoos all over his skin that was visible. I asked him, Yesh lecha neronim, do you have small candles? And he pointed to me where the candles were. And I picked up a few neronim, and I also picked up a couple of yogurt, I remember, and I came back to the counter to pay, and I realized that I had no matches to light the candles with. And I asked him, do you have matches? And he said, no, I have no matches. I asked, do you have a lighter? Do you sell lighters? He says, no, we don't sell lighters. So I was about to go, and he said, just a minute. And he started rummaging behind the counter. He opened up a closet, and he started looking. It was taking some time, and I said, it's okay, really, it's fine. And he said, no. Eventually, he found a box of matches, put it on the counter, and I said to him, how much do I owe you? So he marked up the yogurt, he marked up the candles, and he didn't mark up the box of matches. And I said to him, how much do I owe you for the matches? He said to me, you want to pay me for the matches? I said, yes, I'm buying matches, I want to buy it. He says, Sheyeh lecha Shabbat Shalom. My payment for the matches is that you should have a good Shabbat. I looked at him with his piercings and with his tattoos, and I stopped and I said, you should know that although I look the way I look and you look the way you look, there isn't much of a difference between us. I think we both understand very much the same thing. We had a long conversation, and it struck me, Kefela chariman rakosech. I don't know this man's background, I don't know what he knows and what he lived through. I have no idea why he chose to do all the body piercings and all the tattoos. But even Rekanim Shabach, even someone who at the outward appearance looked like that he was not the greatest scholar or the most observant person, nevertheless says his reward for giving me matches to light Neros Shabbat would be Sheyeh lecha Shabbat Shalom. Anyway, I'm going to explain the pasuk now. This pasuk Gimel, is adding another layer of appreciation to the Jewish people that God has of the Jewish people. Our cleanliness is not only clean hands, our cleanliness is also a clean mouth. Our words, when we give our word, we keep our word. Moshe describes in great length what the emotion of the Jewish people would have been as they're about to enter Israel. 40 years of wandering in the desert, 40 years of living with man min hashamayim and a be'er following them wherever they went, and now they're entering their own land, their own fields, their own crops, living like regular people. How emotional they must have been, how excited they must have been. Yet nevertheless, as they're about to cross, and Yeshua is commanding his soldiers as they're crossing the Yarden, what does Yeshua talk to them about? My dear soldiers, I must warn you about something important. What is it? What is it? Ask the soldiers. You should know that right when we enter Yericho, there is a building there, and that building will have a red string hanging down. There's a woman there that we promised to protect her and her family. We go to war making sure that we have given our word and we keep our word. And that's Kefela Chariman Rakosech. It didn't matter whether the soldier was a great scholar like Rabbi Sabato, who the Rosh Hashiva in Mala Adumim, who was in a tank in the Yom Kippur War, and it doesn't matter if the soldier was a a Jew who was far from the scholarship of Rav Sabato. It didn't matter. Every one of them was warned, we keep our word. Our mouths are clean. The next pasuk is, so that's the translation of the pasuk. Kechut hashani sifsayich, your lips are like a red line. Umidbarech nave, your words are beautiful. Kefela charimon rakosech, your forehead is like a pomegranate, like a slice of pomegranate. Even rakosech, even the empty ones, are kefela charimon, as many seeds as there are in a pomegranate. That's as many mitzvahs as they have. Mibadlet amosech, what comes out from the kerchief, even though it's not within your body, even though it's not within the heart of the Jewish people, they're still great. And we continue pasuk Dalet. Kemigdal David tzavorech, your neck is like the fortress of David. Banui litalpiot, it's built as a mound. Elef hamogen toli olav, 1,000 shields are hanging on it. Kol shilte hagiborim, all the shields of the warriors. Again, in English, psukim seem incomprehensible when you don't explain them. Like the fortress of David is your neck. It's built like a huge mound. 1,000 shields are hanging on it, the shields of the mighty. Migdal David was the fortress of Tzion. It was a fortress for the army. But Tzavorech is the neck, and the neck is the Lishkat HaGozit. The neck of Klal Yisrael was the chamber of cut stone where the Sanhedrin stood. This was the true fortress of the Jewish people, says Rashi. And this was built on high, on top of Har HaBayis, that everybody would look towards it, and everybody would learn from it. 1,000 shields are hanging on it. The soldiers would go to the Mikdash, would go to Lishkat HaGazit before they went out to war. By the way, Talmidim are also called weapons, as it says in Tehillim, Kechitzim biad gibor, like arrows in the hand of a mighty man, came b'nei hanaurim, so are our youth. Hard to understand what this pasuk is talking about. Let me explain. The parable is the fortress of David, and the comparable is Lishkas HaGozis, the neck, the chamber of cut stone, the seat of the Sanhedrin. And by the way, we've talked about this on occasion. The reason why it's called the neck is because everybody's head, in their mind, in their head, wants to do the right thing. But the question is, how do the thoughts of the mind come down to the body? How do you get to do the right thing? And it's the Sanhedrin that order you, that define what it is that needs to be done. They bring the intent of the mind down to the actions of the hands. We had learned in the previous psukim the purity of the Jewish soldiers, their purity of action and their purity of word. But if you want to know how is it that the soldiers have such purity, I'll explain it to you. Because take a look at where their fortresses are. Take a look at what their fortresses are. Take a look at where they're coming from. The fortress of the Jewish people is the fortress of law. It's the fortress of the Sanhedrin. For other nations, their fortresses are places of tanks and armaments, of weapons and tools of destruction. For us, our fortress is the chamber of cut stone of the Mikdash, the place where law comes from. And everybody looks towards it. Everybody looks towards them for guidance, how to go to war, and how to fight, and how to be a Jewish soldier. It's bonu l'talpiyos. The Gemara says it's a mound, shekol piyos painen elav. It's a mound that all mouths are turned towards it. Even empty people go and pray there. If you've ever been at the Kotel and you take a look at the people that are praying there, it's not just the rabbis and the scholars. It's people that you'd never have believed that they were Jewish. People who pick up a folded nylon kippah and put it on their heads, not even knowing what they're doing. Yet when they come up to the wall, they pray and they cry, and they feel that they've come home. Yes, this Lishkas HaGozis, this Beis HaMikdash, this chamber of cut stone, this is our fortress. And that's why the Gemara says in Brochis Daf Gimel, that before the Jews went out to war, they first stopped by Lishkas HaGozis. No wonder the Jews keep their word when they go to war. No wonder their hands are clean from theft, and their hands are clean from sexual sin. Pasuk Hey, Shnei Shodayich, your two breasts, Kishnei Ophorim, are like two young hinds, to Omei Tzviya, a pair of deer, Haroyim by Shoshanim, who graze in the roses. Your two breasts are like two young hinds, like a pair of deer who graze in the roses. Rashi starts to explain. The two breasts are the ones you nurse from, Moshe and Aaron, like two hinds, like a pair of deer. The deer often gives birth to twins and they're both equal, and Moshe and Aaron also were considered equal. Another explanation of the two breasts, says Rashi, were the two luchais, paired. On the right side were 5 commandments that had to do between man and God, and on the left side were 5 commandments that had to do with man and man, and each one paired the other. Each pair, each 5 was a pair with the other, and these are the two breasts. Harayim, and these graze, whether you're getting your nourishment from the luchais or you're getting your nourishment from Moshe and Aaron, we graze, but we graze not only where there's grass that nourishes us, but it's basheshanim, there are roses. Our lives are beautiful. So we had spoken in the last few psukim about the soldiers that their hands were clean, and the soldiers whose mouths were honest, and the soldiers who went for guidance to the Lishkas Agazis, to the Mikdash. But where does that come from? Go look back to the source of that. These Sanhedrin in every generation, these people who learned Torah, they nursed their power, they nursed their origin from Moshe and Aaron, these 2 elder leaders in the beginning of our history. In the same way that a child in the beginning of its life gets milk, and that mother's milk is what helps him grow later on to become a full adult and to succeed. So the Jewish people nursed their mother's milk from Moshe and Aaron, or they nursed their mother's milk from the luchais. The luchais that taught them, as important as it was to serve God, ben adam lamokaim, it was important to serve the second set of luchais, ben adam lachaveiroi. Dibros keneged dibros, ben adam lachaveiroi, matching ben adam lamokaim. Ta'omet tzviya, Moshe and Aaron were an equal pair, and the 2 luchais were Ta'omet tzviya, a perfect equal pair. Another pshat, perhaps, a tzvi, the Gemara says that when you take the hide off a deer, sometimes you can't figure out how the deer ever fit into it, because the skin stretches in order to be able to encompass the body of the deer, and afterwards it shrivels. Moshe and Aaron also were great people. On the outside they looked like just regular people, but from the inside they were able to lead a Jewish people and inspire a Jewish people and raise a Jewish people. So now you understand the pasuk, Shnei Shodayach Kishnei Aforim. Your 2 breasts, whether they are Moshe and Aaron or the 2 luchais, are like 2 hinds, Ta'omet tzviya, like a pair of deer, Haroim Basheshanim, grazing in the roses. This is, and now 1, 2, 3, 4. If you've nursed your mother's milk from Moshe and Aaron, if you nursed your mother's milk from the luchot, no wonder you are motivated before you go to war to take direction from the Sanhedrin, who have been maintaining the law of Moshe and Aaron. No wonder when you go into battle you keep your word and your mouths are clean in language and clean in keeping your word. No wonder your hands are clean, not to sin. That's what God loves in us. And so it was, Achi Yafuach Hayom, but all was well. We entered Israel and we fought for the land and we fought cleanly, but then the sun got hot, V'nasu Hatzlalim, and the shade disappeared and we became endangered. And we'll see what that means. Now, Klal Yisrael says, Eilech li al Har Amor, I await going to Har Moriah, I await going to El Givat HaLevona, to the Mound of Levona. Kulach Yafa Rayati Yemum Einbach. God says, you are perfect, my beloved, you have no fault in you. Rashi explains, Achi Yafuach Hayom, as I said, the sun gets very hot. V'nasu Hatzlalim, in the heat of the day, there is no shade and it's dangerous. And when it's dangerous, you lose your life, and we lost the Mishkan of Shiloh. And when Chafni and Pinchas, in the time of Shiloh, sinned, Chafni and Pinchas were greedy, and they would take korbanos, and they would delay the Haktorah, they would take bribes in order to bring korbanos. So God's presence left Shiloh, and God says, I wait now until I go to Har Amor. I wait now until Shlomo builds the Beis Hamikdash on Har Moriah and the Givat HaLevona, the hill where incense will be brought. You're perfect, Rayati, you're perfect, my beloved, and there is no fault in you. I will, there in the Beit HaMikdash, once again accept your korbanos. The era of entering Israel, the era of building the Mishkan at Shiloh, a stone structure with curtain cover, the era of the 369 years is ending. On one hand, when we entered Israel, we entered it with care. We wouldn't take a dime from anybody. We were so perfect and careful. On the other hand, during the time of Shiloh, we descended, and the Kohanim were supposed to be the moral leaders of the Jewish people, were immoral. They're the ones who extorted money and gifts from the Jewish people in order to bring korbanos, and even were indecent by holding women back in the Mishkan so they couldn't go back to their husbands because they were waiting for their korbanos to be brought. And that caused Mishkan Shiloh to be destroyed. Mishkan Shiloh was destroyed until the Beis HaMikdash was built 57 years later. But nevertheless, God says, Kulach Yafa Rayasi, I still think you're beautiful. When you do sins, we've talked about this in the first period, the sin is on your surface, but it's not in the bone. You're still beautiful. There's no physical defect, there's only dirt on you. When the dirt will get washed off, you'll be good again. So one more time, Psukim Vav and Zion. The day became hot, and the shade and shadow of the Mishkan Shiloh was lost. We lost our Mishkan. But God says, I'm waiting to go to Har Hamor, to Har Hamoria. I'm waiting to go to the hill where the Levona, where the incense will be brought. And yet God says, I consider you beautiful. I will accept your korbanos. Pasuk Ches, Iti milvanan kala, with me from Levanon my kala. Iti milvanan tavoi, you will come together with me from Levanon. Toshuri mirosh amana, you will see me from the top of your faith. Mirosh Snir v'Charmon, from the tops of the mountains of Snir v'Charmon. Mimonot arayot, from the layers of lions. Mihare Nemerim, from the mountains of the leopards. I'll read it again. It's before the explanation. It's incomprehensible. With me from Levanon, my bride, my Kala. With me from Levanon you will come. You will see me from the top of your faith, from the top of mountains Snir and Charmon, from the lair of lions, from the mountains of leopards. Rashi says, Iti milvanon kala. When you will go into exile from Levanon, and Levanon here is a symbol of the Migdash, which the Gemara says, because Levan is white, and the Migdash whitens the sins of the Jews. When you go into exile from Levanon, you'll go with me, because I, God, will go to exile with you. And Iti milvanon tavoi, and when you return from the exile, I'll come back with you, and throughout the exile, I'll be with you. That's why Iti milvanon tavoi, when you are exiled from Levanon, not only will you leave, but you'll come back with me. From when you leave the Migdash until you come back to the Migdash, I'll be with you. B'chol asher teitzu v'tavo, wherever you go and come, in all your comings and goings, I'll be with you. It begs an explanation. It's funny, in the last pasuk, or the two psukim before, God was saying, I await now to go to Har Hamor. I await now to go to Har Hamoria, and Shlomo will build the Mikdash. So good, so let's go for it. But all of a sudden you interrupt. We haven't even built it yet. And already you're telling me that when you're exiled from the Mikdash, God says, I'll go with you. And when you come back from Golus, I'll come back with you. What's happening? Interestingly enough, when Shlomo HaMelech builds the Beis HaMikdash, and he's on his knees and he's praying to God, and he's asking God to hear the prayers of the Jewish people when they are in the Mikdash, when they come on holidays, or when a person is in trouble, etc. It's a few long psukim. It's in Melachim Aleph Perik Chet. I'm going to translate them to the best of my ability. This is what Shlomo said. And when they will sin to you, because there is no man who doesn't sin, and you'll be angry at the Jewish people, and you will hand them over to their enemy, and they will be captured by their enemy.